Tim Legler, ESPN, SiriusXM, NBA Radio, joins us to talk a little hoops at the break here. Legs, how you been, pal?
Great, Mike. What's going on, man? How are you?
All is well. The Sixers in the playoffs. It's like the Eagles win the Super Bowl. The Sixers are in the playoff chase. It's like Philadelphia sports are on top. But we know something's always got to hinder this franchise here. So I want to get your take on this Fultz situation before we take a look at this team on the court and kind of give us your hypothesis of what you see from afar on Fultz and the Sixers and where this all is right now.
Oh, man. Well, I tell you what, obviously there's a lot of unknown in terms of when we're going to actually see Markelle Fultz. It's clear to me that this is something that I think has grown to a level that even the Sixers never anticipated. He first started with some problems last summer, and obviously that's when we started to see the changes in his mechanics, and it was a mystery. I had a doctor who's, really well-renowned come on our radio show on Sirius to talk about various injuries around the league. We were talking about Markelle Fultz, and he knew the exact nature of the injury and made it seem like it was the kind of thing, that muscular imbalance around his shoulder blade that can cause you difficulties for months in order to be able to get your mechanics back, get that thing back on track, get your muscle memory back. So that was kind of shocking to me. That was about a month ago when I heard that, this is not something that's, out of whack with what he apparently suffered. I don't think at any point the Sixers expected him to sit down the entire year, but I think they're at the point where they don't want to put him out there if they feel like they're not going to give him a chance to really look good and succeed, because he's got a lot of pressure on him as the first pick. It's a tough market. The NBA is a bunch of grown men. People don't really have a lot of sympathy for your feelings or compassion. It's you're a man. You're making a lot of money, and they don't want to put him out there in a position to fail. So I think you're at the point now where I'd be shocked if you see Markelle Fultz play this year.
Now, this is a guy, going back to the draft, talking to you, Legs, that you liked a lot, right? You really liked this kid and the way that he worked and his shot. There's all this talk that his shot was changed and altered and tweaked. Now, there's a lot of conflicting reports on that. Now, the guy who worked with his shot, he's not like some fly-by-nighter guy. This guy's worked with Kevin Durant, Boogie Cousins, so he's got some track record. So when you watched him in Summer League and in exhibition play, do you believe that the injury has altered his shot? Because it sounds like the Sixers aren't sure.
It has to. I mean, I don't think. Listen, I've seen Markelle Fultz and been in the gym with him and worked him out and put him through drills going back 2 years when he was a star in the AAU circuit. He was at the Curry Select Camp for the top guards in the country 2 years in a row. I worked with him there. As we were heading into the draft, I was a big proponent of him. I mean, I saw him in a gym with other guys that are taken in the lottery, and he was the best player there. His ability off the dribble and his athletic ability and separation, and his size and his shooting ability set him apart. So for me, I was a fan. I said, whether he was taken 1, 2, 3, whatever it was no question he was worthy of the pick. Whoever decided to take him, Sixers obviously did. There is no way that what he is doing now with his shot, and when I have seen it, and it's really just on videotape, I haven't been down to the practice facility, but I've seen it on videotape, and there is no way that that is a result of someone actively trying to change his mechanics without there being some sort of injury that altered the way that his body was moving in reaction to whatever he was feeling. There's just no way that he goes from what he was, starts working with the guy, and with the injury not being a factor, and it turns out like this. I don't buy it. I think there was something physically wrong with him. His body adapted to probably protect itself from whatever he was feeling, and now he's having a very difficult time going back to what it used to look like. That's what it all looks like to me. It's completely an opinion, but I know what his stroke looked like firsthand. So for it to look like it does now, I just find it hard to believe that a kid that really didn't need a lot of help with his mechanics at all, he had a pretty good-looking stroke,
right,
would end up with this because he went to work with some guy who decided, hey, let's change it up a little bit, because not only is it not close to what he used to do, Mike, he doesn't have a shot that looks like anyone else that you've seen at a high level play in the NBA. So that doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't add up. It's a mystery. It's grown. It's a weight of the world is on this kid now, and I think shutting him down for the year might be their only solution. It gives them more time to try to figure this out, so the next time you see him in a competitive game, he's closer to normal, which would be obviously either summer league or next fall in training camp.
Wild, which would be what? Noel, Embiid twice, and then Simmons, and now Fultz to be out for the entire season. Just a unfortunate coincidence, potentially, as you mentioned. I don't even know that the Sixers know what to say about this at this point. Tim Legler is with us. Without him, they're the 7th seed. They've won 29 games. They got the game with the Heat tonight. They add Bellinelli. But the schedule, I looked at their schedule yesterday. I mean, they should be able to start picking up some wins if they have grown, Timmy, as a team. You know, they've lost a lot of games against some bad teams where I think they just overlook some teams and are young and didn't close them out. But if they have learned from those mistakes and can close out this season, where do you think they can get themselves up to in this Eastern Conference?
Yeah, look, I think because I still think they've got issues, Mike, with how they close out games offensively. When you have Ben Simmons on the court, Joel Embiid, and Ben Simmons is your primary ball handler, and he is really not a threat to shoot the basketball outside the lane. It's tough to get to the rim at late game situations anytime you want to in the NBA. So as a result, the ball comes out of his hands a lot. And look, you can throw it into Embiid or let him handle the ball the majority of the time. I don't think Embiid is on that level yet that he can be this go-to guy on any area of the floor to go win games for you on critical possessions. And then your wing players are primarily catch-and-shoot guys. So they've had a problem trying to figure out how to be able to generate their offense with the ball in the hands of their best playmaker, who is Ben Simmons, because he's not really a scoring threat on the perimeter. That's a problem. Because if you look at the way NBA games are decided, in important possessions at the end of games, and who are the top players that have the ball in their hands, those guys are threats from all over the floor because they're going to take a shot depending on what the defense dictates is there for them, whether that's a three, a mid-range pull-up jumper, a step-back jumper, or obviously be able to get to the rim or make a pass if you have to. And Ben Simmons doesn't have a couple of those things at his disposal. So it really does affect the way they close out games. So I still think they're going to lose some close games that they shouldn't lose the rest of the way. And as a result, I think they make the playoffs, but I don't think that they're going to separate that much from the 500 line.
Obviously, this team, they went out and got Bellinelli, so that'll add a little depth to this team, but the depth has been their big problem. I mean, when they go to the bench, they got all sorts of issues there. But if you're matched up with this team in the playoffs, that would be – I'm sure that if you're one of those top 3 seeds and they're 6, 7, or 8, that you're not thrilled with that matchup in a first-round situation.
No, but you're not. But at the same time, I think that they're a scary team to have to play because of the dominant talent that Simmons and Embiid represent. And, do you want to have to deal with that if you're one of those top seeds? It would be their first time in the playoffs. They're a very young team. They do have some flaws, which I just addressed, but they have immense talent. And so they would be a scary team for those top teams to have to play. Obviously, you're not expecting them to beat Boston, Toronto, or Cleveland. So getting into the playoffs, ending up paired up with one of those teams, if they can make that a competitive series and get a game or two, I think this is a highly successful season, and it gives them a taste of what that's like, and it makes them hungrier moving forward, and it also, I think, makes their front office honest about what they need to do and what they need to add.
Do you like – I don't know what you thought about Cleveland before, but they were a mess. All of a sudden, they've won 4 in a row, 7 out of 10. Do we think Cleveland puts themselves back at the top of the conversation in the East?
Yeah, I think so. And I'm not trying to be dismissive of how good Toronto has been and Boston as well. Boston's, hit a little bit of a lull lately, but Toronto's been fantastic all year. And it's the best version of the Raptors that we've seen over the last several years. They're a more complete team because they take more threes. They have a more modern-looking offense. They have their bench has been phenomenal all season long. It's deeper than they've been. So they're legit. But Cleveland, to me, has the one differentiating factor. They've got LeBron James. Nobody else has one of those. So all they needed to do was shed the dead weight and the toxicity that their roster had, and they did it. They got rid of a bunch of guys that honestly had no use for them whatsoever, and they brought in 4 players with younger legs, guys that are hungry, guys that check more boxes than just one dimension offensively, which was really important because they had so many guys on their team that were one-dimensional players, either because they were too old to be attackers off the dribble, or that's just what they were, spot-up three-point shooters. Well, they went out and they got a guy like Jordan Clarkson who can make plays off the dribble or shoot a three. Hood is a big-time three-point shooter, and he's 6'8", and he can put the ball on the floor a little bit. Nance is their best athlete now at the 4-5 position. He's going to be out there in really meaningful minutes. He's an upgrade from Tristan Thompson even. And then George Hill is the older guy of the group at 31. Ton of playoff experience, good on-the-ball pressure defender, which they weren't getting from Isaiah Thomas or Derrick Rose. So overnight, it transformed their chances. And I think now they're going to start to morph into a team that we are generally going to regard as the favorite in the Eastern Conference, whether they get the number one seed or not. It might be too late for that. So they might have to go on the road against Boston or Toronto in that second round.
Right. But
it won't matter. If it comes together and they play great basketball from here on out the rest of the season, they don't have any major injuries, it won't matter if they finished a couple of games behind those teams and they have to go on the road and win a game because they still have LeBron. And at the end of the day, he's the best player in the conference. And now they've given him enough young weapons that he feels like he actually can go out there and compete, and they can attack and they can defend at the level you need to against Boston and Toronto.
Six back of Toronto in the East is Cleveland. Obviously, Golden State's running away. Everybody thinks – not running away. Houston's only half bad, but everybody thinks that Golden State is the best team to beat them in the East, or is there a team in the West that you think can knock off Golden State?
I think Houston would have problems. I just don't think a team that plays – that kind of style and it takes that many quick shots and quick threes is going to outgun the Golden State Warriors in a series. I just can't see that happening. The one team that I think has the defensive speed to make it a really compelling series is Oklahoma City. But they've got flaws offensively. They go through stretches where their decision-making is awful, and they allow teams to be better than they should be against them defensively. And so until I see a long, sustained stretch where that's not the case and they're really managing the fourth quarter of games much better, I still think their offense will be their undoing. Too many turnovers, too many bad quick shots, not enough ball movement for talent that they have. So I think Golden State's still the favorite, but I think that Oklahoma City presents a really interesting challenge because athletically they can put more speed defensively on the court than anybody else out there. At the end of the day, it's unbelievable. I think if I had to lay money on it today, Mike, I think we're headed for Golden State Cleveland round 4.
Tim Legler, ESPN, Sirius XM, NBA radio, and, of course, a 10-year NBA veteran, kind enough to join us here. Tim, we'll be able to talk about the Sixers in the playoffs this year, it looks like. Finally.
No, I can't wait. And I can't wait to come on and break down some playoff games with you. That'd be a lot of fun.
All right, pal. We'll talk soon.
Yeah, you got it.